I think it is quite an important lesson. I would say two lessons. The first lesson is the lesson of the entity. Neither Ukraine or Ukrainian people were entities in the Second World War. They fought on behalf of the Soviet Union, but the whole world recognized this as Russia, and the soldiers were called Russians despite their ethnic origin. That's why the contribution of Ukrainian nation during the Second World War will remain in the shadow of Russia, which, even from the point of view of Western allies of the Soviet Union, won the Second World War. And the second point is the ability and the readiness to sacrifice with the other, the Soviet soldier, for the sake of joint victory, because it was much easier to sacrifice Soviet soldier, which was a small wheel in the authoritarian regime, than with your own soldier. Here I must say that we now are the witnesses to a very important generation change, when humankind is getting rid of inoculation after the two world wars, and instead of the idea for never again, or the war should not be repeated, maybe substituted with we can repeat. And it's not only in Russia but all over the world. The war is turning into the instrument of solving tasks. And Russia is using it very actively. And we must say that we are sure that, taking into account the experience of the Second World War, that in the fight between democracy and authoritarianism, democracy always wins, and the history of the Second World War is a testimony to this. But I'd like to draw your attention not to the 1st of September 1939 and the 8th of May 1945, but to the 22nd of June 1941. What Europe looked like at that time. The overwhelming majority of the states were occupied by the Soviet Union and Hitlerite Germany, Nazi Germany. So the motherland of Lenin's was occupied by the Soviet Union. Nearby there were countries occupied by Nazi Germany. There were also nearby countries which were allies of the Nazi Germany. Speaking about democratic countries, which, with the exception of the United Kingdom, there were no more in Europe, practically. Therefore, as of 1941, we already had lost the war to authoritarianism. The final fall of Britain was just the issue of time, and the United States didn't want to interfere. And the president of the US at that time promised his compatriots that the United States would never participate in the war in Europe. If in 1941 this Hitler didn't attack the Soviet Union and the Western countries decided to make use of the Soviet demographic machinery, and then the war would be lost. Otherwise, the war would be lost to the Nazi Germany, and the United States would be observing this with indifference, which they have now looking at us. Then there is a question: who will help us to win today? If the Soviet Union is fighting against us, and we don't have some other demographic machinery to overcome this threat. 30 million Ukrainians is not 100 million Soviet citizens. Ukrainians cannot defend European democracy individually, the democracy which is turning into the triumph of ultra-right and ultra-left radicals in the overwhelming majority of European countries. And you see this in your country, in your own countries. 5-10 years more of such developments, and European democracy in 2030s would remind the European democracy in 1930s. So we are moving to this. So there is no inoculation against war. There is no inoculation against the authoritarianism. It disappeared. And we are losing what we got over the decades after the Second World War, with all difficulties, which means that in 10 years there will not be here in this room. There will be absolutely different people with different agenda. That would be not just a failure of our nations, that would be a personal failure of each of us present here in this room. Then the question to you, what to do? And the answer should be found. We need a joint or common model of security for Europe. We must understand that Europe can help itself to it. We need just end to put just end to the war in Ukraine. Every month, every day, every month, every year of the war in Ukraine instills a fear in the hearts of people. We need a new structure of security of the European Union and NATO. We need the model of security which would help us to guarantee our safety from Lisbon to Kharkiv, from Ankara to Odessa. So that could be the vertical and horizontal model, if you wish. This is our new cross. And we must understand clearly the threat. We must learn how to work with our disoriented societies in the situation of new information technologies. We should not believe that old means would help us to prevail over those who use the new ones against us. This is just a short list of what we need to do. I don't think that any one person or any think tank would develop this to full extent. We must develop common understanding of threat, because we are at the threshold of losing, of defeat. And then what Lithuanians or Ukrainians felt after the Second World War, other Baltic nations, which were first occupied by Hitler, then by Stalin, nations of Central Europe, we all will feel, because we all would lose political agency in this, because in Moscow, Peking, Beijing, and Washington, they are refusing us this agency already.